Welcome, and thank you to our esteemed guests for attending the special edition of Mastermind at the Stonehouse 1625 to 2025 event on 24th of September 2025. And thanks to you for viewing these highlights. First of all, it is my privilege and honour to announce the awards. After much deliberation, combined with inevitable infighting and necessary oiling of the wheels within WAFTA's Board of Trustees, that is West Herts Academy of Film and Trivia Awards, a decision has finally been reached, and we are proud to announce two awards. First, the award for Best Actress in a Leading Role goes to Miss Marsh, played by Wendy Critchlow. Well done her. And second, the award for Best Costume Design goes to Roger Watson for his amazing blue 17th century costume. At the end of the event, we were reminded that we could and indeed should have mentioned that since 2022, Stonehouse has hosted young and aspiring musicians under the auspices of the Little Gadsden and District Music Club, and that Stonehouse Garden and Barn has hosted the LGPCC++, that is Little Gadsden Bowls and Croquet Club, for rough winter croquet. So, without further ado, please sit back and enjoy our highlights about Stonehouse through 4 centuries and the Mastermind quiz.
My name is Karine and I will be your quiz mistress for today. So each contestant will face up to about 10 questions. Members of the audience are welcome to intervene, and of course, as you see fit, just add to any kind of responses. So let's start. Please welcome our first contestant. Your name, profession, and year of birth, please.
Roger Watson, retired lawyer. What was the last question?
Year of birth.
1672.
And your specialization?
My specialization is Stonehouse. 1625 to 1850.
Oh, very good, thank you. So, let's start with the questions. What livelihood activities were carried out at Stonehouse during the 17th and 18th centuries?
Farmstead Stonehouse had within its control and use animals, crops, and fruit trees.
That's correct. It is indeed one of the 2 oldest properties in what is now Potten End. Very detailed response, thank you for that. And how many bays did the original barn have? How many bays?
5 bays. 2 were destroyed, and the thinking is that they were destroyed by fire or a big storm.
Correct. The oak beams of the original bays are in the shape of original oak trees, whereas the most recent straight end beam on the east gable is likely to have been machine cut. So these are the beams that are going across the barn here, and the far end one is the one that's straight. What is a misery whip? A misery whip.
A misery whip. Now that's a term for a cross-cut saw which has a long blade and a handle on each end. And there are two men holding it, and the one pulls alternately with the other man.
Correct. The handsaw marks on some of the oak crooks can be seen in the barn. So you can see on that going across here, you can see some of the marks. What happened here in 1704?
That was John.
What vaccination was administered at Stonehouse Cottage to villagers during the 1800s?
Yeah, smallpox.
That's correct. Well, thank you very much, Roger. At the end of this round, you scored 10 points.
Thank you.
And how would you like to be addressed?
Miss Marsh, of course. Only my parents ever called me Mabel, and of course my dear beloved Jack, to whom I was betrothed, but who was cruelly taken away from me in what has subsequently been euphemistically called the Great War.
Oh. And your specialization, please, Miss Marsh.
Stonehouse, 1850 to 1971.
According to the census of 1851, what economic activity was practiced at that time in 41 of the 50 households that comprised Potten End?
That was plaiting wheat straw.
That's correct. How much could a woman platter? How much could a woman platter earn per week in the early 1800s?
1 whole pound, which was more than double the agricultural wage of 8 shillings a week a year.
Correct. What is the prominent writer and agriculturalist Arthur Young reported to have said about the craft?
He said it made the poor saucy and no servants could be procured.
Outrageous. That's correct. What was made in Luton and Dunstable more than 100 years before Bedford vans and trucks?
Straw hats from the plaited straw made in Potten End and other outlying villages, I believe.
That's correct. And we've got one of these straw hats of the local area. A thriving business. Who became a tenant of Stonehouse in 1855?
That would be Henry Lane, who extended his nursery business here. 15 acres of Stonehouse Farm there was.
That's correct, yes.
He rented it, I believe he rented it from Ashridge Estate, which had taken over Stonehouse by the mid-1800s.
Yes, very extensive response. Thank you for that. So the land was extended both east and west from this building along what is now known as Vicarage Road. What did Henry Lane propagate in his business nurseries?
Rhododendrons, grown from seeds originally sent back from the Himalayas, or I believe it's sometimes referred to as the Himalayas, by Joseph Hooker, who was a well-known horticulturalist, botanist and explorer, and indeed a very close friend of Charles Darwin.
How posh. And that's the correct answer. So who lived at Stonehouse during the late 1800s and what did he do?
I believe that was a horseman who stabled his horses here.
I'll give you half a point.
No.
The horseman delivered rhododendron orders in ferns, transporting them to private properties within a 40-mile radius by horse and wagon. What happened here in February 1897?
1897. Christmas 1896, I remember very well. It was my 5th Christmas and it was bitterly, bitterly cold. I was not at Stonehouse then, of course, but it was bitterly cold everywhere, and the cold went on into January 1897, so by the time February came, there was no food to be had, and Ashridge Estate gave a whole venison to Potten End.
Yeah, that's quite an extensive answer, but not all I wanted to know, in fact. So I'll give you half a point again. Harsh. For a full point, you could have added that the animal was transformed into 270 pints of soup at the old vicarage, and it was distributed to all the families in Potten End. When did you buy Stonehouse, Miss Marsh?
I bought Stonehouse in 1926 from Miss Dean, and I paid £500 for it. She had acquired it in 1923 when the Ashridge Estate was broken up.
That's correct.
Thank you.
What was this barn used for during World War II?
Well, in 1939, when war was declared, I had the fireplace installed and the chimneys and washing and cooking facilities, and I let it out for the duration of the war to a bachelor.
That's correct. And how did you deal with the large puddles that appeared after heavy rain between the cottage and the barn?
Well, I planted that weeping ash which you see, and its roots soaked up all the water.
Correct. How did you finance your retirement after the war?
I built a nice little thatched cottage called Cherry Trees just down there, and I moved there, which was much more comfortable and practical than Stonehouse, and I let out Stonehouse to tenants.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I still only give you half a point for that. For the full point, you could have added that you then sold the land between Cherry Trees and Stonehouse for building. Today the properties Pipers and Orchard Croft are on this land. When you eventually sold Stonehouse in 1950, who bought it?
Now that was the Priestland family. Francis Priestland was the father of Gerald Priestland, who at 26 was the youngest foreign correspondent ever of the BBC, and it was he who reported on the election of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He also reported on the first US manned spaceflight and the funeral of Nehru.
Correct. Thank you very much, Miss Marsh. You scored 10.5 points in this round. You may return to your seat.
Anthony Lucy, retired mechanical and electrical engineer, 1925.
And how do you like to be addressed?
Well, my grandchildren called me Gabby, my sister called me Ant, at work they called me Tony, but Anthony will do fine.
Okay, Anthony. And your specialist subject?
Stonehouse, 1971 to 2015.
What made you decide to move to Potten End in 1971?
Well, I used to work for the British Oxygen Company, BOC, and I understood from them that I was likely to have to work in Milton Keynes, Waltham Cross and Hammersmith for the rest of my career. So I took a map and some string, and the midpoint is Potten End.
Correct. What made you hesitate about buying this property?
Well, we were moving from a really very sensible 5-bedroomed house in Chalfont-St-Peter, and my wife Pat and I found this place for sale, and she sort of fell in love with the barn, and I thought, well, yes, okay. It was really a question of would the head rule or the heart rule. I then invited my son Trevor over, and we had a look at the place, and we worked out that you could transform the carport into extra bedroom and bathroom facilities and so on, and turn part of the barn into a garage. And so we went ahead and bought it and invested in that as well.
Correct. What did you use the barn for?
Pat used it as her studio, mostly during the summer because it was pretty miserable during the winter, and she ran art classes for people from the community for nearly 30 years.
That's correct. Can you name the people in each of the original oil paintings in the barn, please?
Okay. Well, this one behind me here was my wife Pat in her teens, painted by her father Eric, and I gather that she was playing the role of some kind of cleaner assistant to the pharaoh in Egypt at the time. Straight ahead of me there is Pat's sister Marigold, again painted by her father Eric, who also painted the very large painting. No, he didn't paint that one, sorry, that wasn't him, that was a friend of the family. And this was my wife Pat on the right with her sister and 2 brothers. It was their dog, but they borrowed the horses for that one. The one in the corner there, the Mediterranean one, was done by Pat's best friend Hermione, who was my son Trevor's godmother. The one at the top there is Pat in her late 20s. She never used to smoke, but the cigarette was considered very cool at that time, so the painting was. She also painted Alexander Solzhenitsyn below from a black and white newspaper article. And the painting right immediately behind you, as you'll recognise, is me. Yeah, I think that's about it.
And you didn't mention anything about this one?
No, I don't recognise that one.
No?
The man on the left bears resemblance to my son, but otherwise no.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's quite an extensive explanation of all these beautiful artworks. So that is definitely the correct answer. And as for the couple that's in that canvas that you don't recognize, maybe we'll come back to that later. So I can stretch half a point for that answer. Can you name 10 species of wildlife that have been seen at Stonehouse?
Well, I came across one of them yesterday morning at 5 o'clock, just in the corner there. You couldn't see it. Gliss, gliss. We've had all sorts of wildlife. Muntjac, deer, roe deer, badger, squirrel, mouse. Getting smaller. Bee. Fox, thank you.
Badger.
Hornet, shrew.
Hedgehog.
Hedgehog, I think we're over 10 now.
Yeah, that's quite correct. Whose wedding receptions were hosted at Stonehouse in 1974 and 1988?
Well, 1974, that will have been my elder daughter Wendy, when she married Chris, and they're both here today, and the reception was held here. Yes, I invited everybody here, more than 100 of them. We had speeches, and it was only after the speeches that I realised the whole barn structure almost collapsed. The other wedding, of course, was my younger
daughter Julia when she married Chris, and the reception was also held here, and they were brought here in a horse and trap that belonged to John Groom the baker.
Correct. Just to confirm, there are two different Chris's.
Yes, yeah, I should be clear. We have big Chris Horn, who 6'5", and have little Chris, who's only 6'1". Yeah.
What new technology was tested here?
Well, maybe that is, yes, I used to get involved in research and inventing things, some of which had some kind of good application. Anyway, I put a lot of time into a project with others from the community here to develop a solar-powered pump that could be used in India and other countries.
Correct. What games were played at Stonehouse?
Well, here in the barn, it really was divided into two parts. And the far part, we didn't have that structure there, which was must have been put in after my time. And we played a game called badminton, which is badminton but with ping pong bats, which was very popular. We had short tennis, croquet in the garden, and also ping pong using a ping pong table that I had made a few years earlier. I'd made it while up in the attic, and my wife Pat told the kids that I was making shelves for the attic, but I consider that a white lie that was allowed to be said, even though the motto of our family is by truth and diligence.
Correct. Did you pass on Stonehouse to your children in your will?
Not exactly. I just assumed that Stonehouse would have to be sold and the proceeds would be distributed to my kids.
Thank you, Anthony. And in that round, you scored 7.5 points.
Lucy, retired international development advisor, 1954.
And how do you like to be addressed?
Well, my grandchildren Felix and Ottilie call me Grandpa Bike because of my affinity to bicycles. My daughter Rachel's children call me Grandpa Golf because of my passion for golf and that I drive one. My sisters call me Trev, but please call me Trevor.
Okay, Trevor, and your specialist subject?
Stonehouse, 2015 to 2025.
When you had the old north-facing kitchen knocked down to make way for a new extension in 2016, what did you discover?
Well, underneath the old kitchen, we found a brick-lined underground food store that could be accessed via a stairwell behind the old hallway.
Correct. As I understand it, the building inspector obliged you to fill in the space with concrete and steel for safety reasons. But after you restored the barn with the help of Anthony's handyman Maurice Southam, what two purposes was it used for from 2018 to 2020?
Well, we used the barn to run the registered charity WiseAid, including online sales of decorated eggs, handmade by women on the Ukraine-Romania border, as well as handmade scarves made from giant Himalayan nettle. Yes, and the charity, called WiseAid now, it originally was called Trans-Rural Trust from its creation in 1997 until 2016, when we had to change the name because we were fielding telephone calls from trans activists inquiring about whether we provided financial assistance to trans people in rural areas. And, following that, between 2018 and before COVID struck, we had a variety of classes running out of the barn. So we had Tai Chi, Pilates, Qigong, and one more that I can't remember. Yoga.
That's fine. Well, correct. So many lives in this building, isn't there? What new enterprise was started after the pandemic?
Well, my nephew Graham and I prepared the annexe and barn for lettings, and since for about 4 years now, we've been running short-term Airbnb lets, normally 2 to 10 nights out of the annexe and the barn. Guests, they park on the driveway, one space for the annexe, one space for the barn. The whole operation is very discreet, and many of the guests use the local cafe Cedars for their refreshments and breakfasts.
Correct. Are Airbnb lets ever inspected by Airbnb staff?
No, Stonehouse has never been inspected by Airbnb. They have a system of reciprocal reviews, so guests review hosts and hosts review guests, and they maintain standards via that process.
Okay, I'll give you half a point for that, actually. If you recall, Dacorum Council carried out its own inspection last year to ascertain if the right council and income taxes were being paid and if regulations were being complied with. They made site visits, checked documents, made us answer a 48-point questionnaire that had been tailored to Stonehouse and gave it a clean bill of health. Give me 10 reasons why guests have stayed at the Airbnb here.
To build tunnels for HS2, to conduct illicit affairs, to visit Harry Potter studios, to visit Legoland, to attend birthday parties, weddings and funerals, to go walking in Ashridge, to provide maintenance services for Wembley Stadium, and to repaint B&Q in Aylesbury.
So is Nantika involved in the Airbnb project?
Absolutely. Since April this year, she has been running it, doing changeovers with assistance from myself and my nephew Graham, who has been helping to maintain and develop Stonehouse over the past 4 years. Nantika runs a very thorough and professional operation and enjoys it very much.
She's the boss. Correct. How many bookings and guests have there been during the current Airbnb season since April this year?
Well, we've had 87 bookings, but I couldn't say how many guests we've had.
Well, so half a point then. In total, for the annex and the barn, there have been 161 guests this season, with a total of 251 guest nights since April. Of the 87 bookings, how many guests have given poor reviews?
Ooh, maybe 10?
Incorrect! There were just 4. Only 4 bad reviews out of the 87 bookings. So can you give me an example of a poor review?
Well, we did have one guest staying in the annex who he complained it was too cold. So I, of course, increased the temperature for him from, I think, 19 degrees to 21 degrees. He then spoke to me again and he insisted that I increased it to 23 degrees, which I obliged. I gave him a slightly cool reaction, perhaps. But when it came for him to write his review, he addressed his review to who he thought was the host, named as Graham Horn, and he said that one of the staff was rude to him. That staff was me, of course.
Correct! Give me 5 reasons that guests have said about why they enjoy staying here at Stonehouse.
Well, they often say it's a great location for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have booked it, I suppose. They say it's very peaceful, has a lovely garden, full of character, of course, and friendly.
Correct. Is it worthwhile running the Airbnb?
Well, for sure it is tough, but Nantika and I think on balance it has been worth it so far at least. Nantika particularly enjoys running a small and successful enterprise.
Yes, and it gives an opportunity to meet a lot of people,
Yes,
doesn't
of
it?
course, yes. It gives us thank you. I'll do that. Graham, Nantika and I really appreciate meeting people from around the world. We've had people from Australia, Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Jordan, New Zealand, Netherlands, Thailand. Can't forget Thailand. Switzerland, UAE, and the USA.
Correct. Although there isn't really a right or wrong answer for that question, but I'll give you half a point. You're pleased to learn that the first round is the only round. I can therefore announce that the winner with 10.5 points is Miss March. So thank you to our contestants, and for those of you who may not know them all, Roger Watson is a member of our croquet club in Little Gaddesden. So if you'd like to stand up, Roger, and salute. Wendy, as Miss March, is Trevor's elder sister, who always got top marks at school and university. Anthony is the late father of Wendy, Trevor and Juliet, played by Trevor himself. And Graham, playing Trevor, is the son of Juliet and Chris Hall.
Well, thank you, Carrie. That was brilliant. And thank you to everybody for being such an enthusiastic audience and so on. A big thank you to Nantika, who actually cooked the whole of today's lunch. And also for the chairs from the Little Gaddesden Music Society. Ian and Liz are here, so thanks for that. But yes, I mean, in summary, I think my experience of Stonehouse, I think I always took a great interest in it since my parents first saw it in 1971, and it always seems to have had this sort of special atmosphere, and it was a hub for the family and for events and all the rest of it. So I think it sort of has a momentum of its own, which is sort of bigger than those who live in it. We'll see who lives in it next time. I'm not quite sure. My parents certainly would have been a bit surprised to look down on us right now.